Not every Teachers Pay Teachers resource makes money. In fact, some of them completely flop. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 5 resources from my TPT store that did not perform well, and most importantly, what they taught me. Hello YouTube fam, it's Chantel, the face behind the teacher mindset, and welcome back to another video. I thought today's topic would be very interesting because when you look at a lot of content that you see on YouTube or social media around being a seller on Teachers Pay Teachers, you always see a lot of the fun, exciting, and successful parts of being a seller on TPT. But, and I'm a part of that. I create a lot of content that talks about the good side of TPT. But not everything about being a seller is always fun and bright and happy. In fact, a lot of us spend so much time creating resources that don't always meet our expectations. And so I thought it would be an interesting video to talk a little bit about some of those products in my store. So I have 176 resources in my TPT store. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to be highlighting 5 of those resources that for various reasons I consider to be a flop. We're going to take a look at what those resources are, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think they're a flop and what I've learned from them. And honestly, when I think about it, I probably have learned a lot more from these particular resources that were flops than I do from the successes. So I hope in this video, what you'll get out of it is that you'll see that there is this other side of selling the TPT. I hope that I keep this video very transparent and share some things that you could also learn in your stores. So the first product that I'm going to be talking about that I would consider to be a flop in my TPT store would be my linear calendar resource. Now, I love the idea of a linear calendar, and for those that might not know what a linear calendar is, it's basically taking a calendar and instead of having the 7 days, Sunday through Saturday going across, and then the days kind of stacking underneath it in the way that we see a traditional calendar, you take the calendar and you just essentially make it this giant long timeline. And this resource is used in a lot of preschool or lower elementary school classes because it really helps students at that younger age to be able to visualize what the calendar is a little bit better and to kind of be able to see the time and the way that a month lays out a little bit better. And it also allows you to be able to incorporate other resources into that, like little fun stickers that talk about the weather, special days, when they're in school for days, when they're out of school for days. And so I really enjoy this resource. And because it has this opportunity to be so creative, which, I love that creative aspect of designing for TPT, I thought this would be a great resource for me to kind of put my own spin on. And so I created this concept of a linear calendar that essentially a teacher would be able to download. They would be able to take it in its various sizes, and they would be able to have it printed so that it could expand and you could have this giant linear calendar that you can kind of put together in pieces in your classroom. And so, as I mentioned, I really love designing this resource. I love creating it. And overall, the concept and all of the pieces to the linear calendar really came out great. But the biggest reason why I would consider this, and the main reason why I consider this resource to be a flop, is because it has so many issues when trying to size or scale it up to the proper size that a teacher needs it for their classroom. Now, this resource was up in my store for a little while and it had a few sales, and ultimately all of the teachers that ended up buying it really did have a lot of issues with scaling it to size to get it to be all of the pieces that they needed to print out. And so it was very disappointing because here they are spending this money on this resource. They love it. They go to the store. They can clearly see what they're getting. They're very excited about it. But ultimately, after they buy it and try to bring it to life, it just didn't come together the way that I was hoping to. And so I can totally understand where those teachers were coming from. And I decided to remove this product from my store, and I don't want to put it back in there until I can really work out all of those little like kinks, so that if someone else does end up buying it later on in the future, they won't have the same issues that the other teachers did when they purchased it. And so after taking down this resource and not putting it back in my store as of yet, it really taught me that, like, as much as you can have a great idea and a concept, the execution of that concept, of when a teacher buys it and actually is able to execute it in their classroom, is really, really important. And if a teacher is spending, whether that be $1 or $50 or $100 on your resource, if they aren't able to then take that resource and implement it and execute it in the manner in which either you intended for the product to be executed or they intended for it to be executed while they're using it, then it's not really an effective resource. And so again, another thing that I've learned from this flop in my store is that if your product is not functional, it's ultimately no good to any teacher. So again, I am going to be working on this at some point. You know, I've kind of put it on the back burner, and this video kind of really made me think about it again. And so I am going to print this out, really work out the kinks, see what's going on with the sizing, and maybe add some components there to give teachers tips and tricks on how to best print it and scale it, so that, again, those other teachers who were having those frustrations when they bought it doesn't happen to a teacher in the future if I ever do decide to put it back into my store. The second resource from my TPT store that I would consider to be a flop are my digital choice board templates. So for this resource, I actually have multiple, and it comes in a bundle. So you can either purchase one of the templates or you can purchase the templates in a bundle if you want to get one that represents each of the different months. But basically, this template is like a blank template that allows you digitally to be able to go and add activities or lessons so that you can create a digital style choice board for your students. So I actually created this product back in the early stages of my TPT store, because when I started this journey, we were in the throes and right in the heart of all of the virtual learning that was going on. So a lot of digital templates and things that were good for virtual learning were really good for teachers because of this nature of how we were working. And so I created this like fun template that gives you like all these different like monthly designs and color schemes so that you can pop different like activities in that fit with each month. And you can send it to your students, whether that be through Google Classroom, or you can share it if you were in person on maybe your smart board, or again, just share some choices for your students to do virtually, whether that be at home or in the classroom. And again, as I said, it did have a few sales. It wasn't like a popular item in my store. But ultimately, at the beginning, some of the feedback that I got around this resource when people were buying it is that they didn't realize that it was just a template where they had to then add their own choices in. They kind of thought that they were buying something that already had like, that was like preset with like choices to give for that student that like fit around the theme. Because as I mentioned, it's like a bundle where you can get like different templates to fit different months and different themes. And so I got some really low ratings on this particular resource. And teachers were saying, hey, I thought that I was buying this with some options in it, and I was a little disappointed to see that like it was just like this blank template. And ultimately, like at first I remember seeing like a lot of those comments, and I'm like, well, you're buying this for like $1. Like you wanted this giant resource that came with like all of these preloaded like activities, and it was only like $1 or like $2 in my store. But ultimately, like when I went back and I like looked at the description, I realized like the description was like kind of misleading. And then the way that I like had took some of the photos, like I went in and I pre-populated it with some activities to kind of show teachers of what it can look like. And I think there was some confusion around like, oh, hey, it's going to come with these activities, but that wasn't necessarily the case when they bought it. And so After that resource never really gained any traction, because now when you come, you just kind of see the negative reviews around it. And even though I did update that description to make sure that it was very clear, like, hey, you're buying a template, like you're not getting it preloaded with activities, you have to pop your own activities into the template. I think those negative reviews and comments that came up at first as people were buying it and seeing that it wasn't meeting their expectations of what it was, ultimately like did do some harm to like the overall product. So very early on, I think this particular product in general was actually like the first 1-star review that I got back on a TPT resource. So it was definitely one of those like huge milestones in learning. And from that, I learned that like first impressions are like so important. If a product, is bought by someone and they have an impression of it, again, it doesn't meet their expectations, that ultimately can really harm how your product can do in the future. It's one thing if you have a product, it has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of like 5-star reviews, and then there's like maybe like a 1-star review like thrown in there. It's like, okay, maybe there was some like, something that wasn't clear for that one particular buyer, but you can clearly see that the overall majority of people who are buying it love it. But when you come to a product and there's only 1-star reviews, I, as a teacher, if I was going on the platform to buy something, I'd be very hesitant to then spend my money on that, because I'm like, oh, there's only like 1 or 2 comments here and they're all saying the same negative thing. So that would kind of deter me from buying it. So I totally understand. And it really, really made me understand that like the way that I use words in my description, how I'm describing something really is important, because first impressions really, really do matter. And you want to make sure that if someone's spending their hard-earned money to buy your product, that they really truly understand what they're getting. Product number 3, or resource number 3 in my TPT store that I would consider to be a flop would be my interactive math and literacy digital centers. Now, for this particular product, I actually did not make this with the intention of selling it on TPT. I actually made this again back early when we were in the pandemic recovery / virtual hybrid in-person learning time. I made it because also while I was teaching in the classroom, I also had like a little side hustle where I was private tutoring students, not at my school, like students outside of my school. So I also had my own students that I was working with. And at the time, because of like the virtual learning setting and things like that, I was also creating resources that I could use with my private students. And so I actually created these digital math and literacy centers to use with one of my students who I have been with for about 6 or 7 years, tutoring one-on-one. So it was designed with that student in mind, because at the time he was also in the grade range that a lot of my resources for TPT fall with. As you know, I was a pre-K 4 teacher. And at the time, my student was in kindergarten. So he was like a good test for some of these different things. So again, I made this resource for him. It's an interactive PowerPoint resource where it's set up so that you run it in PowerPoint and you can click and it will automatically give you right answers and wrong answers, and it will proceed through the entire resource all the way to the end. And so I had this resource, I created it. It was fun for the students. So I'm like, okay, if it worked for my student, he loved it, I'm just going to pop it in my TPT store. I think that's like a natural thing that most people would do. So I put both of these resources in my store, and they have, to this date, 0 sales. No one has bought it. It doesn't even have a lot of views. The conversion rate is tanked. And so, no one was interested in this resource that clearly my one-on-one student was interested in. And so that's primarily why I would consider it to be a flop. So one of the things that this particular product has taught me, and really it was one that I kind of almost forgot was in my store, because again, no one's bought it. It has 0 sales. And it's been in my store for 5-6 years, or almost the full lifetime of my TPT store. And so when I was making this video, it brought me back to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this product has been here the whole time and no one has bought it. So I wanted to feature it in this video. And as I was kind of thinking about it, it just made me realize that like resources that you create for your classroom or you create for your students don't always translate to sales in TPT, because something that might like be very niche or specific for your particular student might not translate into the general audience of teachers. And when I think about it, I'm like, okay, yes, I get it. There are so many other digital interactive resources that you can find on TPT that are very similar to mine. And they're like much longer. They have like, it's a much longer resource. Like you can go through my entire resource from start to finish in like 20 minutes. So your student, you pay like $3 or $4 for it. Your student uses it one time, they're done with it in 20 minutes, and it's like, okay, like I need something else. So again, it wasn't meant to be this long thing. It was like a supplemental thing that I have for my student, and it didn't necessarily translate into the audience of teachers and like what they need. And so it taught me that like, yes, I can have this great idea. It might even be tested and loved by other students, but if it's not like adapted to really like meet the broader need of people who might want to buy it and use it with a broader audience of students, it's probably not going to sell. So that was something that I learned. It was actually like this epiphany that I had as I was making this video. And I'll take that with me as I'm looking to adapt other resources, because I've been like thinking so much about, again, I'm a private tutor. I still do that. And now I have even more students than I had before. And right now I have one student that I'm working with doing sixth grade math. Well, not just sixth grade math, but middle school math. And so like middle school math is like not in my like niche of what my TPT store is. But I have been creating a lot of like worksheet and resources because I've been finding it hard to find like a lot of quality examples and worksheets that I can do with him virtually, like that already exists. So I've been like creating some of the resources and like tweaking it to the way that I need to work with my student. And a part of me is like, you know what? My TPT store is more geared towards like elementary literacy and like preschool literacy. And here I have this like whole library of middle school math. Like, do I want to add it to my TPT store? But before I do that, like I'm going to take a step back and say like, okay, yes, I created this for my one student. Is this resource going to be beneficial to a broader audience of math teachers? And is this going to be a resource that like is meeting their needs and that they can't find anywhere else in the TPT, you know, catalog of all of these millions and millions of resources? So part of me has been thinking about that, like, hey, it kind of doesn't fit, but like maybe it'll help someone. And so before I do that, I think I'm gonna like adapt these and like make them a little bit more like palatable to the broader masses. So just something that I've been thinking about. The fourth resource in my TPT store that I would consider to be a flop are my letter practice worksheets. Now, I would say like out of all of the resources that I'm going to talk about being a flop, I'm actually the most sad about this one, because if you've been following along in any of my videos, you know that my sight words practice worksheets are like by far the biggest selling resource in my store. And so as a creator and as a seller, you know that if you have a resource that's like a really hot item, it's a bestseller, then you want to make other resources that maybe are a spin-off or very similar, because it shows that people are coming to you, they're loving this particular resource, and if you have something else to offer them that's very similar, they might actually buy that. And so I've created this template for sight words practice worksheets. I've adapted it for like all of the adult sight words lists. I'm now adapting it for all of the Fry sight words lists so that I can give teachers like both options. And then I created this letter practice worksheet to kind of supplement that. So like you have the sight words in this really fun way that like has all these different activities on it. And so I created that one, a similar one for uppercase, lowercase, and then mixed letters. And I thought, okay, like this fits right in with the audience that I'm working with. It might be for kids that are a little younger, but like if you're looking in the pre-K4 range, letters might be what you're looking for. And then you might adapt, and then you might step up to sight words. But unfortunately, like that has not been the case. And I'm very sad because this resource like barely has any sales. And, you know, my whole theory about making resources that are like kind of similar, which, you know, is a smart thing to do, just like did not turn out well in this particular instance. And so I love this resource, and I'm just so sad that like other teachers don't love it as much as I do, but that's okay. And so the lesson that I've kind of learned from this is that you can have this like really successful idea and you can apply that concept to another resource, but they could have totally different outcomes. And maybe the thing that I need to learn from this is that maybe it is a great resource, but like maybe it's just that people aren't finding it. Maybe like they're coming to get the sight words and I'm just not doing a good job of connecting them to other similar resources like that so they can buy it. So I'm definitely going to do a little bit more digging into like why this particular product is not as successful, because I think it would definitely be a resource that would come in handy for teachers that need it. But for now, I'm just going to consider it to be a flop. And the fifth and final product in my TPT store that I would consider to be a flop would be my Sight Words Write the Room activity. So I have a lot of Write the Room activities in my TPT store, and they do okay. They're not as popular, obviously, as other resources, but they pretty much do well. But this particular resource has not done well at all. I don't think I have any sales of it. And again, I'm not really upset about this one because, as I mentioned with the digital math and literacy centers, with that resource that I created it for like an entirely different purpose offline from TPT, and I just kind of put it in the store to see what happens. That's kind of similar to what is happening with this resource. So if you follow my channel, I did a video a little while back where I showed you how long it takes to create a resource from start to finish. It was really to teach upcoming TPT sellers like, hey, you know, you have this idea, you want to start a TPT store, but like what time does it really take to be able to get at least one product, a quality product from start to finish up in your store? And so for that video, which I'm going to link in the cards above, so if you want to check out that video, you can. I created this particular resource in that video. And so again, like it was a resource that I like used for like an other purpose, and that was like to create like the long form content on this YouTube channel. And so I'm like, hey, like we just created this whole product from start to finish and we posted it in the store as a part of making that video for start to finish, but like it has not really done anything. Like it doesn't have any sales in my store. And so I guess I'm not really upset with that because again, it really gave me like the purpose that it needed to, which was like for this long form content, and it just happens to be in the store, you know, gaining views. At least people are seeing it, and maybe one day it might sell, and then there might be teachers that might gravitate towards it. But as of right now, in terms of like a product, like that, a quality product that's like selling, like it does not do that. So which is why I'm like featuring it for the fifth resource in my store that I would consider to be a flop. So before I end this video, I did want to talk about one other thing. As you noticed in this video, I've been talking a lot about products in my store that are flops, and I've been using that word a lot. And I just wanted to make sure that I clarify that there is a difference between a product being a flop and a failure. And so in my mind, like a flop just means like a resource that you posted in your store and maybe you had expectations, as every teacher would, every resource in their store that they put there, they have some level of expectation that it's going to sell well, right? Because you're creating this resource that you want to be useful to other teachers. And for whatever reason or another, like that product did not maybe sell the way that you expected or did not meet the expectations that maybe you or others intended. But I do want to make it very clear that I consider none of the resources in my store to be a failure. Ultimately, whether the product sold a lot or it still has no sales, I have learned something unique and different in the process of making every single one of my resources. And so that in itself is a success. The process of making each resource and get it in my store has taught me like, you know, a lot about really quality control, taking my time, slowing down, making sure things are accurate. As I mentioned, it's really taught me how to shape my words in a way that really makes it so that other teachers can understand what they're buying from me, because in my mind, I can have an idea of what this is supposed to do, but I want to make sure that I'm communicating that in a way that other teachers understand that too. So it's really helped me with that. It's made me a much more creative person. It's taught me time management, because I'm balancing like running this whole TPT on the side as well as working full time and having another part-time gig, which a lot of the TPT creators and sellers on here do. It's just increased this level of like, it's just sparked this level of creativity. And ultimately it's brought me joy. So, again, nothing has truly been a failure, even if I've identified that as a flop. So I just wanted to make sure that was clarified. I don't want anyone to think that I am in any way calling anything in my store a failure. That's definitely not the case. I would consider the months where I make $5 and the months where I make $800, like it is all truly a success, because every product that sells truly does help another teacher, and it really does bring me joy to do this. So just wanted to make sure that was clear before we end this video. And that brings us to the end of another video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. It's definitely different from, the typical videos that you see from a lot of creators. It's definitely different from the videos that you see most certainly here on this channel. But I hope that it can be a little bit of a source of another form of transparency about what it's like to be on this journey of being a TPT seller. It's definitely not easy, but again, it's fulfilling, it's rewarding, it's fun. And I hope that if any teacher or any TPT seller is coming across this, you're thinking about getting started, that this is just one other side of it that is really helpful for you to understand along in your journey of like, hey, is this really worth it? And so I hope that's what you get from it. If you are a TPT seller, I would love to know in the comments below any resources in your store that maybe you consider to be a flop, or what are some key lessons that you've learned in those products in your store that maybe haven't done as well. Or maybe you just want to shout out products that are doing well in your store. I would definitely love to hear that in the comments below. And before we leave, speaking of the comments below, I also want to make sure that you like this video. I would love to also have you subscribe to make sure that you can keep up with other videos that are coming up. I didn't get a chance to post a video for May, but that's okay. We're back on for June. And then next month, we're going to already have our next TPT income update. Excited to share that with you. And there's so many other things that are coming up in this channel. So please make sure that you are subscribed. You turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss when a video is posted. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.